Oh, hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 287. I am very lucky, privileged, a delight to have Richard Thompson on the podcast. He is a former Navy SEAL. He is a master coach at You versus You, consultant public speaker, and real estate entrepreneur. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you. Appreciate being on.
Uh, I am intrigued because I would say this in my research in on yourself, sir. I came across a YouTube video where you evil man, you put two YouTubers through the works. I mean, like, yeah, wet, miserable, cold, getting lifting all kinds of things, and you give them the classic Navy SEAL sugar cookie on a couple of occasions, like, well, not a couple of occasions, all the time. Sand everywhere. What can I say?
That was a lot of fun. Yeah, that was with Leon Hendricks and
Mm,
Matt. And so that was an experience, and we put people through those experiences. And I'll sum it up this way, because I get asked a lot about my experience in Hell Week, and it's training to become a Navy SEAL. And that video that you saw was a way in which to have the civilian population have a taste of what training may be like. It's nowhere near that level, but it meets people where they're at. But
mm.
what I say to people, like when you go through a an episode of Hell Week or a segment of it, and for those of you who are not in the US and may have no idea what a Navy SEAL is, we're a special force within the Navy, and we get called on to do things. Usually our history is like 1 foot in the water, 1 foot on land. And after 9/11, a lot of things changed. But this process in which to become a Navy SEAL, one of the introductory challenges you go through is called BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. And within the first phase of 3, well, week 4 or 5, depending on the time of year and when you go through, there's a phase called Hell Week. And you'll see it in like Discovery Channel, and it's pretty well publicized. It's not classified, so people can talk about it. And it's 5.5 days of nonstop training. So you get about 3 hours of sleep on like night 3 or 4, and it's just enough just where you're like, that's bullshit. They didn't really let me go to sleep. Like, there's no way I just slept 3 hours, right? So before you go into sleep in the tent, they put you in the water. You're frozen. Guys are huddled. We're hugging each other. We're shaking so bad. We're just trying to look for warmth any way possible on our cots. And I never knew that you could fall asleep standing up. I never knew you could fall asleep running, but your body will find a way to sleep. Your body wants to recover. And so it's not like, hey, I partied all night. I'm really tired. I know what that's like.
Mm.
It's like, no, you don't know what it's like not to have sleep or to physically train for 24 hours. Like, that's a long time, right? To be pushed. So I tell people all the time, I wouldn't wish Hell Week on my worst enemy, but I wish every one of my friends and family had the gift of that experience, because who I became on the other side of that is a different person. So, like in most things in our life where it's challenging and it becomes really valuable to be able to take away the learning and the nuggets from that, that I wouldn't have built like somebody say, okay, I'm just going to give you a free pass. You don't actually have to go through that. You don't really want to do that. And my body and my brain would probably say, oh, hell yes, I wouldn't want to go through that. Logically, it would make no sense. But I would never have wanted to miss that experience. I wish everybody had the gift of that. And we're able to give that to people like Leon and Matt in a way that has a taste of the beauty and the gift of that hard work, that gift of wanting to quit, the gift of wanting to just give up, the gift of pushing yourself right to that point where you think you have no more, and go on the other side of it to where it's like, wow, I was just scratching the surface of what's possible. This human being, this human machine, we're capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for. But how often do we take ourselves to that place where it's like, I've got nothing left, and you push through that perceived barrier? Because that's all it is. It's just like this paper wall that we think is so real. And sometimes we have to just get pushed and choose to go right through it and going, wait a minute. Are you kidding me? What else am I making up about myself? What else am I making up about my limitations? So that's really what the gift is. It's like, and it's like a Pandora's box. You don't get to go back in. Once you do that, you don't get to go, well, you know, yeah, that was, man, I can't do this. It's like bullshit. You can do anything. There's nothing you can't do. You're choosing not to. And that's a big difference, right? For myself, it's like all the time I'm catching myself going, oh, I can't do that. Or, oh, that's pretty big. And you're like throwing up the bullshit flag. Like, no, yeah, you can.
Now, I am very curious. Now, you have gone through Hell Week. You give the experience to other people about Hell Week, everything like this.
Mm-hmm.
Who were you before you actually went through this sort of baptism of like 5 days of fire? Like, what was your sort of outlook and mentality? Like, there had to be something there to like go, hey, I'm going to join the service in the Navy SEALs.
Yeah. So do you want to know why I went into the Navy?
Hey, I would love to know. Come on.
So this is pretty fun because most people are like, what? Are you kidding me? That's crazy. So I love playing sports growing up, right?
Okay.
If it was a ball and it was competition, I'm jumping in, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I started growing up and I'm playing football was my sport of choice at that time. But what I lacked in size, I did not make up for in speed, right? So I knew that that was going to close up on me real fast, right? And so I'm like, oh, but I want to compete, right? I love just getting the snot bubbles and
Yeah.
just cracking heads,
What
right?
position did you play?
I was inside linebacker, fullback, and kicker. So I just loved doing that, right? And we went to I grew up in the LA Unified School District in LA area.
Yeah.
We got to like the city championship and stuff. And we ended up losing that game when I was in my senior year. But that's when I got to play against guys that were like 6'5", 300 pounds. And I'm like, okay, this is not Crenshaw High School. This is Crenshaw College that we're playing here. It's like these are grown men. Like, and I'm like 165 pounds, about the same size I am now. But I'm just a little bit heavier now. But it's like, wow, like that's what speed looks like. Because
Yes.
these guys were running circles around me. And that's what size looks like. And some of those guys had size and speed. I'm like, and I got none of that. Hoo-yah, here we go. And so I also fell in love at that time. My aunt and uncle took me on a trip and they're like, hey, we play golf. Do you play golf? I'm like, that's for old people. What are you talking about? And I was like 15. It's like, oh, we play golf. I'm like, okay. So I grabbed my dad's set and took it with us. And I remember the first time I played, I said, there's no way it could be that hard. Like, there's nobody trying to tackle me in my backswing. Nobody's trying to block the cup, right? I'm like, this is going to be easy. And as soon as I played, I fell in love with it. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The ball's not even moving. And I'm hitting the thing I'm missing it. I'm chunking it. And then I'm in these environments that are so beautiful. I'm like, man, there's power, there's finesse. I loved it. And I'm like, and you can do this for a living, man. And so from there, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to go on tour. That's what I'm doing. And so I just started playing nonstop. That was my sport. And then I actually found out you can actually go to college and learn how to play the game, right? Because the only reason I had like a 2.0 in high school is because to play sports, you had to have a 2.0 or higher, right? I was not a student. Thankfully, they had a 2.0 or it had been a 1.0 or less. And so I would just be scraping by. I never thought I was a very good student. And then when golf came into my life, I'm like, this is what I'm doing. I went to junior college to study golf management, right? And I wanted to play. I didn't want to manage. I wanted to play. I want to compete. And so there's a kid behind me in LA that was a year younger than me. His name is Tiger Woods. And I'm like, all right.
Heard of him.
Yeah, never heard of that guy.
Yeah.
And by
Sounds like a
15,
punk to me.
yeah, and he was in that world and he had won everything when I'm just getting started. I'm like, all right, how do I beat this guy? Because I'm going to beat him. I'm going to find a way to win. And so I'm like, how do I like? He's just an amazing. Like by 15, he's won everything in the juniors. I'm nobody. I'm like, I'll find a way to beat him. And it's like, how do I do that? And his dad is a former Green Beret. And his dad on the golf course used to like jiggle change in his pockets and cough in his backswing. And Tyler's like, Dad, why do you do that to me? And he's like, because I'm going to make you more mentally tough than anybody you play against. And I always thought, man, that is awesome. Right. It's like, okay, that's like, how do I get that? How do I get that type of mental discipline? And so I'm like, I don't know. And I'm walking through the library at school and there's a magazine cover. And on the front, these guys are like wet and sandy, they're screaming, they got a log in their hand. And it said something like, are these the toughest guys in the world? I'm like, all right, I'll bite. I was like 19 at the time. And I start reading through this article. It's like Newsweek or something. And it talks about Navy SEALs. It talks about SEAL training. And they're jumping out of planes and hunting terrorists and blowing stuff up. I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. I like that. I like all those things. And at the end of the article, it said something like, and they're the most mentally disciplined warriors on the face of the earth, or something like that. And right in that moment, I had a seed planted in my head. I like, wouldn't it be cool to go become a Navy SEAL? And then when you're old, like 30, you can get out and then go play golf. Right. And at that same moment, another voice in my head's like, all right, you're crazy. What the hell are you thinking? That you're like, I didn't know what Navy SEALs were before then. And I don't really have a military family. But that seed got planted. And the only thing I could come up with was, why not? What stops you? Why not? Like, who cares if you do or don't? But when you're old, like when you're at the end of your life and you look back going, what could have been? I'm like, I don't ever want to look back going, wow, what if I would have tried? What if I would have gone for that? And so I'm like, man, I got nothing holding me back. I wasn't married. I didn't have any ties. I'm like, why not? Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? In my mind, the worst thing that could happen is never trying, never giving it a shot, where I would just have to look back going, oh, I had a nice, safe career. But I'm just like, fuck that. I'm sorry if I'm cursing. Uh,
You're okay. I look,
okay.
I believe adults listen to this, and if kids are listening to this as well, so be it.
All right.
So be
I want to make sure I get fired up and I start talking like a sailor.
it. But you
But at that
were a
moment,
sailor.
yeah, at that moment, it was like, man, there is nothing stopping me. And so right away, I just like, all right, let's go. Let's go. And so I went to the recruiter, enlisted in the Navy. I said, this is what I'm going to do. How many SEALs have you had come through here? And he's like, none. I'm like, oh my, what? Like, oh, okay. Oh, what? That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'll be the first to come through this. Right. And in that moment, it was like constant making sure that I had decided. It wasn't just like, oh, is this something that sounds good in the moment? But in that moment, I said, yeah, let's go. And so that's when I went on this path and I went in and went into the teams, had a really good time there. And at that point, I was doing a workup. I blew my knee out, had it reconstructed, and stayed in that platoon. And then went in on when I got back from deployment, had to have another operation on it. And I had to make a call at that time like, do I continue in the teams or do I pursue this dream of playing professional golf? And at that time, when I was on deployment, I met my girlfriend, now my wife, and I said, hey, here's my dream. Here's what I'm going to do. Would you like to join me? That type of thing. And she did. She's the most incredible person I know. And we went on this path of trying to become a PGA Tour player. So long story short, I went and pursued the path of PGA Tour. I just beat the shit out of myself on the golf course mentally. never got really that good. I got good enough to see what really good players look like, and
Hmm.
that was not me. So that was part of the other shoe to drop was like, oh, I never really did get that got like a scratch. Pretty good weekend golfer, you would say, but nothing to make money at it, right? But that was just part of the path, man. It's just like, oh, okay, cool.
Not put it this way. Look, okay, young Tiger Woods back then. But like by the time you went, hey, you know what? I'm gonna do golf. He was in the golf scene for a good 13 years. So,
He had a better golf swing when he was 2 years old than I ever did.
yeah, he was on TV when he was about 2 or 3, and you see
Yeah.
was like going, yeah, I was like, okay, yeah. So yeah, you had the ways to catch up with him, but
Yeah. I think one of the things for me is like um, giving him the gift of having people pursue him like that.
mm,
That what brings out the best in him. I wish I would have become better so that I could have brought out the best in him, even more than what he thought he was capable of. And I wish each of us would pursue life in that way where I'm going to become the best version of myself. I'm going to become as good as I can to
mm,
inspire others to become as good as they can. Whether it's coaching or being a father or whatever it is, it's like to demonstrate what's possible,
yeah,
right?
no,
And what fires me up.
yeah, I hear you, and like I agree. But this is the thing with people today; they get in their minds this is what it should be, and quite often it is. How can I say? It's some Instagram reel of like the ideal life or the ideal career when they
Yeah.
haven't really had a true taste, I should say, of many different things, and then like going, you know what? This is where I kind of fit and develop their sort of skills and like, yeah, and moving forward in that sort of particular area and field to become the best they can be in that particular area. It could be baking, it could be cutting grass, it could be like being an accountant. I don't know. It's a myriad of things. But yeah, I just feel there is, well, not feel, I know there are a number of people out there which haven't just gone out there and went, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Let's see which one sticks or which one suits me best.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a very personal path. I love it. And I love getting the message out there. It's not an Instagram world.
Mm,
It's like I can constantly remind myself because I'll see like a new actor bust out on the scene and I'll see him in like 3 or 4 movies in a row. I'm like, oh, that guy just came onto the scene. Man, he came out of nowhere. And then you've learned about the background. It's like, yeah, 20 years of work to come out of nowhere. And
mm,
it's like, oh, that's right. I constantly keep reminding myself that there's been a lot of work. Just because I'm not aware of him doesn't mean he hasn't been around for a long time doing the reps on a daily basis to get where he's at. And it's that constant reminder for me that people just don't show up one day and become a, a superstar overnight, right?
yeah. I think that's one of the things I think people need to see a lot more. The reps what go into any sort of task or endeavor. Because yeah, it's great to see the sort of finished product at the end of it, but you don't actually see the dings and the battles and like you know what I mean, the tests which come along, which can be so defining. Because like the amount of times where you're like, oh yeah, okay, I got through this like this tough moment in my life, and yeah, but there must have been a number of different things along like getting up to that point which has made you a little bit stronger, made you a little bit like more wary, made like giving you the ability to handle it, but
Sure.
you don't see it. You don't
Yeah.
you hardly see it these days.
Yeah. And everybody, I would love to have everybody go through and choose the challenge. Stop waiting for the challenge to happen to them. So that's one of the things we learned in the teams is we relentlessly train
Mm-hmm.
so that we know the challenge is coming. We know it will be here. And
Yes.
we constantly work and strive to become the best team we can be so that we can overcome whatever challenge we face. We never know what it's going to be. We just know it's coming. And it's like in life. We know in life the challenge is coming. None of us get through life without challenges.
Mm.
That's what life's about, right? It's kind of like problems. If we frame it as a problem, it's like if we're breathing, we still have problems. Ideally, we're striving to have bigger and better problems, right? So I've had the pleasure of working with people, and money's an easy one to look at, easy one to measure. And I've worked with people that have very little money. I've gotten to work for billionaires, multi-billion, some of the wealthiest families in the world. I've had the opportunity to be part of security details for.
Mm.
They have problems. If you're human, you have problems. The quality of your problems and the type of problems you have may be different. Everybody has problems, right? So people that think they want money and they're striving to get money and then all their problems will be finished, that's probably a very poor choice of pursuit. If you think your problems go away because you have something, maybe we reframe it instead of going, hey, instead of not wanting problems and going, I want bigger and better problems. I want better quality problems. I want to think about, how do I choose the charity of my choice? How do I cut a check for $1 million to my charity? And how do I make sure that those funds get deployed in a way that I see fit? That's pretty good problems. They're going, hey, how do I put another meal on the table? Right? They're both problems. But what type of problems do you want? And if we try to not get rid of problems, there's a quote by Jim Rohn that I absolutely love. It's like, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills. And it's like, oh, that's an awesome way to look at it. Instead of me trying to go, oh, I need to get rid of these problems, reframe it in a way it goes, what type of problems would I really love to dive into so that I can make this a meaningful pursuit? And so that's been very helpful for me. And a lot of my way that I reframe my thoughts have been really helpful for me in my pursuit of what I think a worthy life is.
Yeah. No. So with that mindset, with regards to yourself, looking at Tiger's dad doing the jingling of like the change, like to make him more like mentally strong. Like, yeah, you going, yeah, I want that. Going, looking at a magazine which came up by chance saying the mentally less strongest. You must have a very good sort of perspective on that. When you come across someone who is, say, one way in their mindset, where they might have more of a defeatist like outlook, and then if they go through your coaching like program, is there like a sort of moment where you can see the sort of spark go off in someone's eyes? And what has those moments been, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's some criteria I need in which to really be a great coach.
Mm.
And the first one is, are they coachable? Do they have a growth mindset? Carol Dweck, great book. Highly recommend it to everybody. Growth Mindset, the book. And if somebody's has a fixed mindset and they're shut down and they're like, because I do a lot of group work, I do keynotes and I talk to groups of people all the time.
Mm.
And in any group of people that did not raise their hand and go, hey, Rich, I want to pay you to have me coach them, there's going to be people that feel like they had to be there, right? If you get a group in a corporation or whatever it's going to be, there's going to be a percentage that are like arms folded, like, you can't teach me anything, man. I've heard all this stuff before. This is all crap and foo-foo and woo-woo and all those things. Those people, they get to be right. And there's nothing that I can say that will change their mind. How I show up may invite them to maybe see a different way, but if they're locked in and they're absolutely going to be right, I don't have that superpower to be able to change them. They get to be right and they get to keep living and having the results they have in their life. And there's nothing wrong with that. Go for it. Usually the people that I can serve are the ones sometimes when they think they're right, but they get beat down to a point where they're just like, okay, this is no longer working for me. This is no longer serving me. Maybe there's some other way of looking at the world that would benefit me more to get the results that I want. And when people start to become open and they're like, hey, I'm looking, that when the student's ready, the teacher appears type mentality, when they're open to learning, then I have the opportunity to present some information or maybe my way of being that allows them to see maybe the way they're thinking isn't getting the results they want. And maybe there's a new way that we can present information or paradigms or perspective that will get them closer to what they want faster and more effectively. Those are the type of people I can absolutely help. Right. So that's one of the criteria is like, are you open to coaching? I can't make anybody do anything. Like I don't have any magic pixie dust, but if I did, I'd sell it for a lot of money. Right. And it'd be a lot easier, but that's the problem. Everybody wants it faster and easier. And that's really sexy to sell online. But the reality is you're looking for that character development. We're looking for the type of certainty and growth that comes from doing the work that scares the shit out of you. Doing the work where you have to lean into it going, my brain is freaking out right now. This is really uncomfortable. And let's go. When you can get into that space where in your brain, it's like being human. When we lean into something that's uncomfortable or for the first time and we look really bad and we're terrible at it, the brain wants to go, what are you doing? This is not fun. Stop doing what you're doing. We're going to die. Like that's what it sounds like in the head. And most people go, you're right. What am I doing? This is crazy. Let's stop. So that's in that moment, people think they're wrong. That's where a coach can become so valuable. And I wish everybody had the gift. Everybody deserves a coach. Either way, you can get it from a book, a podcast, one-on-one coaching group. Find a way to get a coach, mentor, whoever it needs to be. You need a new perspective, somebody to bounce ideas off, see what's possible. And so when you have that brain freaking out, let's say you're going for a goal, something you've never done before, right? The brain's going to freak out, right? It's like the motivational triad, right? It wants to stay safe. It wants to be efficient, right? And wants to seek pleasure. You're going against that. So let's say there's a lot of people right now, it's the beginning of the year. There's a lot of people, let's say on a workout regimen, right? Going to the gym. They were motivated before, first few weeks. I was motivated. Now it's starting to feel a lot like work. Now it's starting to feel like, man, Rich, I was going to go to the gym today, but I just didn't feel like it. And I go, whoever said you had to feel like it to go to the gym? And their mind just stops, goes, what is this guy talking about? There's people that go to the gym when they don't feel like it. Wait a minute, what is that? I thought I had to be motivated. It's like, who the fuck told you you had to be motivated to go to the gym? Right? But that's just a concept that we have. And understand that when you don't feel like going to the gym, you're human. Welcome to the club. Most times when I work out, I don't feel like it. I don't wait to feel motivated to work out to go work out. I know my brain's going to go, why are we going to do this? Didn't you do something like this yesterday? Your body's sore. There's no reason to do this. Why don't you just sit on the couch, drink a 12-pack, and watch the game? That sounds a lot more exciting than actually going in there and pushing myself again, right? The brain, and people think, oh, that's what I should do because that's what's being told in my head. And we get to think about it in a slightly different way, going, that's my brain doing what my brain does. That's what it's designed for, that part of it. It's gotten us really far on this world so far. Then there's a prefrontal cortex that goes, okay, I have a dream, I have a goal, I have this self-actualizing part of me that wants to become a better version. Now you have this tension between the two, right? So you've got this part of you that wants, oh, I want 10% body fat. I want to be able to do, a bunch of pull-ups. I want to be able to pick up my grandkids over my head when I'm 80 years old, right? But the body in the moment's like, dude, just relax. Life is short. Have a 12-pack. Watch the game, right? And the brain's doing exactly what it's wired to do. Now it's a choice. Which one are you going to go with? You're not wrong either way, but you just get to make that choice. Where people go wrong is they think, oh, I think like this, so I'm one of those people. Like I'm not motivated, I'm lazy, I'm all these things because my brain tells me this. It's like, no, your brain is doing what it's wired to do. It's wired to seek pleasure. It's wired to be efficient, right? It's wired to stay safe. Now, when we look at that paradigm, if we go, is that true? Of course, my brain's going to tell me not to work out today because that's not efficient. That's not pleasurable, right? That's that short term. Long term, it's very pleasurable, right? Once you get into the habit of doing it, then it's like anything else. You're like, oh, I feel better when I actually work out. But getting through that river of misery, that valley, is very daunting for a lot of people because they think, well, I'm just not motivated like everybody else. And I'm looking around going, who's motivated every day? And why would motivation be the key to get you into the gym? Well, it's like, if we let that go and we just go, look, what if you went to the gym even when you don't feel like it? And who said you had to feel like it to actually go to the gym? And most people I talk to are like, really? Is that a thing? Or you just really, you go to the gym when you don't feel like it? It's like, yeah. And how do I do that? I have to have something bigger than how I'm feeling in the moment. Right. And that's when we get into, like, you hear people talk about purpose and having a why, something bigger than yourself. Those are all tools to allow you to do the things when you don't feel like doing it. But I think a lot of people can benefit from understanding that when everything in your head's like, man, I just don't feel like doing it today, I'd rather just sit on the couch, or, the alarm clock goes off. I told everybody I was going to get up at, pick a time, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever it is for you. And the alarm goes off. And in that moment, what happens in the brain? Oh, it's so comfortable underneath these covers. It's still dark outside. You worked hard yesterday. You got up early yesterday. And you know what? You don't have an appointment for at least another hour. So you can stay in for another 15 minutes. It's not going to kill you. It's a lot more comfortable here. And, it's cold. And as soon as I get the covers back, then it's cold. And blah, blah. Like, the brain is trying to justify why you should be able to hit the snooze or just turn off the alarm completely. And most people beat themselves up for that. And if we can realize that that's just my brain doing what my brain does. I appreciate you, brain. You're just trying to conserve energy, right? You're trying to be efficient. You want to seek the pleasure of being in the bed, right? You just got woken up by the alarm, and that's not pleasurable. It's pleasurable just to stay where you're at. It's nice and comfortable in bed. If you get up and think about doing like a workout, oh, really? And the brain's just like constantly trying to talk you out of that. So that's when you have to, or you don't have to do anything. You get to choose, like, oh, I appreciate, brain, you're doing exactly what you're designed to do. I love you. And now I'm going to get out of bed and go do what I said I was going to do. And if people have that part of them, it's just training. It's just training. It's like what I learned in the teams. We don't rise to the level of our expectations. We simply default to the level of our training. That's Archilochus. It's thousands of years old. And for a lot of people, it's like, wow, okay, so I can just relentlessly train and become a superhero. Absolutely. Most people would rather go, well, I'm just going to go watch John Wick. And, I saw that scene where he gets like 3 guys with a pencil in a bar. Like, if it really happened, I might be able to pull something like that off. Right. And the brutal reality is that's really going to be a painful ending for you. Right. So if we can fall in love with the work, if we can fall in love with the daily grind of doing the work, we can learn to really love the process, knowing that all these skills that we like learned in the teams are perishable. Most of the skills that we learn are perishable. So if you're a rock star 20 years ago, like, most people would go, okay, I did a marathon 20 years ago, so I should be able to lace up the sneakers and do a marathon today, right? Because I've done it. I did it before.
You could. Right? But yeah. Hey.
And most of the skills in life are like that. We have to constantly train them if we really want to be good at them. Relationship building, training, working out. It's one of those obvious one with the physical work. Well, it's no different with the mental work or the emotional work, or all. It's a constant. It's not like, oh yeah, I was good. I had a tough relationship 20 years ago and we learned to work through that one, so I should be good. It's like, no, it's this constant work on ourselves, constant work on relationship, constant work on our physical being. Like it, and we have biases that we can't see by trying to do our own self-coaching all the time. I love self-coaching. It's great. But what I've heard and learned is we can't read the label from inside the bottle. So for me, it's like, oh, I think I've got it figured out. When I have all my thoughts in my head, I'll figure it out. I should be able to figure out, I'm a male, I'm supposed to be a leader. I should be able to figure this shit out. Right. And then we keep tap dancing and getting the same results going, man. All right. Obviously, the people that I'm leading suck because I must be a good leader and the people I'm leading must suck. And the brutal reality is, no, the people are fine. You're just not developing as a leader in which to get the results that you want. And that's where it's like real punch to the face. It's like, all right, if we're willing to embrace that, going, okay, I don't have all the answers. Me personally, I've got a lot more questions than answers. And I love that. I love thinking that, like, I'm not here to give answers. I'm here to give questions, because that's a lot more empowering to other people than to feed them answers. And that's what a coach does. Ideally, a coach will, one, demonstrate what's possible, right? That's what a leader will do. They lead from the front, demonstrate what's possible, and then ask questions that allow people to see how powerful they really are.
Now, you bring up several good points. And like, this is the thing. One of the sort of key aspects I take away from that, between motivation and discipline. And like, this is the thing. Motivation is, like, to me, it's always the spark to get things things started when you first get things going. First of all, with any sort of endeavor, or sometimes a tough day. But to get you to show up on the regular every time, it's the discipline you put into play, and that comes in the form of systems and routines you can like put into your life to make that easier for you. Because look, trust me, today in the UK, it was like -4 Celsius, cold, cold,
Yeah.
cold. I don't like the cold, but yeah, I was out doing my 10-mile run this morning.
Nice.
I was going, okay, got it done, came back, yeah. Thick gloves, yeah. Cold to the bone. I don't like running. For me, it's more a sort of meditation thing, but I go, yeah. In my sort of workout week, I have to run 3 times a week. Just like, right, that's it. I'm not going to go, yes, I must run a set distance. I'm not going to do this. But the minimum is I run double digits each, and like for all of my runs, double digits. So it could be 10 miles to like up to, yeah.
That's your standard.
Yeah. And I try not to drop below that, because I sort of dip in and out for running. Like I forget how good it is for me mentally, not so much the physical, but the mental side of it. I forget. I drift away from it for about a few months, then I come back to it. Because I did the London Marathon last year, I was like, yeah, did that. I was like, okay, but you should have seen me. No, you should have seen my sorry sight. Like at the end of June, like I did a half marathon, Leamington Spa, and like this is the thing. I was like, okay, I've been running. Been doing a few weeks of running, doing a half marathon distance, and one of the things you forget when you're running together with a group of people. I like little competitions start kicking off in my head. So I'm keeping up with that person, keeping up with that person. Like my Garmin said to me the time, like if at that point, if I was running okay, I'd be like around about, 45, 50 minutes for like 4 minute, like for 4 mile laps. When it said to me, oh yeah, you have like, first lap, like 38 minutes. I was like, oh no, I'm in trouble. It's like, but it's one of those things. I didn't have the sort of discipline in place to like make sure I was ready, prepared for that. I was motivated, yeah, but didn't have the discipline. And I think a lot of people get that mistaken. You need the motivation, motivation. When it's truly motivation's just a spark to get things going, and it's all about discipline and systems in place. I could be like, I might be wrong about this, but like from what you're saying, I think you might be on the same page as me, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would never make anybody wrong, right? We're all on this path to learn, and
Mm,
it's their perspective, right? It's your perspective today. And you know what? When I talk to you a year from now, it's going to be a different perspective. And how do I know? Because we're pushing the envelope of what we know is possible for us.
mm,
So as we lean into being uncomfortable, then we have the opportunity for even newer and cleaner and clearer perspectives. So you may come back a year from now going, it's absolutely motivation and discipline and this. And you'll have that certainty because you do the work. And one of the things I love to tell people all the time is don't take anything I say as the truth. I don't have the truth. This is my truth, right? This is my truth. This is like little t, not the big T. So don't take anything I say as the truth. This is simply what I've learned up to this point in my life. And if you hear me a year from now, it will be cleaner and clear and more concise because I will continue to lean into being uncomfortable for my growth. So me as a coach, me as a father, me as a husband, a year from now will be completely different and better than what I am today.
mm.
No different than what I told, like I had the opportunity to work with the Philadelphia Flyers, a hockey team. I said, when you see me coach you 2 years from now, I will be a different person. I will demand it of myself because my standard continually as a warrior, I strive to become a better version of myself so that I can serve. And so leaning into that is motivating to me. It inspires me in a way that goes, man, I'm just getting started. I'm just scratching the surface of what's possible. I don't even know what's possible. And what the hell does that mean anyway? Right. So we get to what we think is the top of a mountain, like, oh, once I get to there, I've got it all figured out. And what happens is we get there and we realize it's just a false summit. Right. Now we have a new awareness going, I thought that was my peak. Man, that's just a resting point. Let's go.
Mm. Yeah, I think we need like with regards to many people with motivation and like achieving a goal or a target, you see this all the time with sports, like people like, yeah, I want to be the world champion of the world in boxing, or I want to like, yeah, our team needs to win this league title. Soon as they achieve that goal, soon as they've got to that place, it's like it's the night of winning, it's the best night ever. It's fantastic. It's brilliant. It's sensational. But the morning of the next day, it's sometimes the worst day for these people because it's like, right, what do we do now? Rather than
Yeah.
looking at it in a sort of an infinite game where you got to keep on, like, just carry. It's not about winning or losing. It's about playing the game until the day you drop. To like keep on improving, to keep on getting better, to keep on seeing how far you can go. It's just like, yeah, it's like, yeah, it's finite when it's truly not at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a good point because I've heard that as well. Like, especially it's easier to see in like professional athletes because their lifespan in the sport's so short. And they have the same thing with people like astronauts that work years to have the opportunity to go on a mission and into space. And they come back and they're like, huh, well, I guess that was the peak of my career.
Mm,
And they have like a depression, right? It's like they work so hard and then it's like, that was the apex of my life, my work career. Depends on how they see themselves, right? So a lot of people, and I see this happen as well, when they identify, their identity is tied to their job.
mm,
So most people, I'm a Navy SEAL. It's like, well, that's the job you do in the Navy, right? So a lot of people, I'm a professional football player. I'm a whatever, right? And they go through this career and they identify themselves with being that job. And like any job, at the end of that career, at the end of that line, then it's like, what's next. Like, oh, I'm done. Like, I'm done.
Mm.
And it's like, no, that phase of your life, that part, that job, that career is done. You're not done. So when people identify themselves as their job, it becomes really difficult for that person, that depression, that letdown. And it's natural to have, work hard for something like a championship and have that letdown. That's like a natural curve. And then we can overcome. Where it gets dangerous is when people identify themselves as that career. And so that's one of those things. If people feel like their identity is tied to their career, who they are, that can be a difficult position for a lot of people, more than just depression.
Mm. I have to ask, did you have that figured out when you left the SEALs to basically become a golfer? And then like from being a golfer to like, yeah, what was after that?
No, I would say the skills I had were nowhere compared to what I have now. Like going through the teams was more just sheer aggression
Mm.
and just like you, I'll fucking show you. Like when you whip a dog and most dogs will just fall over and some dogs just stare you back down.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
like, that was the mentality I had, right? So my upbringing, I remember it was really obvious to me when we were in the first part of Buds, and there were guys, you just looked at them, you're just like, I remember line up on the grinder, and this guy to the left of me, I look over, and this guy, I'm just like, holy shit. He's like 6'2", 220, just a rock of a human being, right? Just like, okay, that's what a Navy SEAL looks like, right? In my mind. And then I look over to my right, and there's the guy I've been training with. Like, since he came out of the womb, he had a little knife in his mouth, and he's like, I'm going to be a Navy SEAL. I'm like, okay, that wasn't me. This is pretty new to me, right? And the instructor at the front, our proctor, he said, statistically, less than one of you will make it out of the three of us. And I'm like, okay, so the odds for me are pretty low. All right, nice. And I just signed 4 years of my life to the U.S. Navy, right? So like, if you don't make it through Buds, you don't just get to go home. You just go out onto a ship, right? Thank you very much. The Navy appreciates your service. You'll be out on a ship, right? And so it's like, all right, here we go. And sure enough, like once we got started, what the SEAL training is really good at is finding people who can withstand adversity, finding people who can, when they get knocked down, they continue to just relentlessly get back up.
Mm.
And that's tough to identify because you can't see it from the outside. So you can't see it from a guy that is just a hulk of a human being. So it always fascinated me because once we got through the first few weeks, that big guy gone. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Because as soon as he couldn't do anything right, and this happens to quite a few people, they're used to being the All-American, the captain of the team, everything they do is just perfect. And they've never had to overcome just relentless failure after failure after failure and be able to keep working through it because the instructors are world-class to be able to go in and just make you look stupid. Like whatever you say, you're going to be wrong. Right? Whatever you do, it's going to be the worst class ever. I can't believe this. We're just going to shut down the SEAL training because these are all retards going through here. Like this is the worst thing ever. Right? And you'll just hear stuff like that all the time. And if you take it personally, it'll just crush you. But if you learn to go, hey, I'm still going, I'm still here, keep moving forward. That's the person they want. They want to know that whatever's said and done, it's that spirit inside, that warrior within that will just find a way to make it happen. And so those guys that end up, and I talk to people about it, like when I was going through, one of the things I had going for me was a difficult upbringing in a way that allowed me, like you'll hear the term, to be able to detach. Mm-hmm. So when things got tough and people got in my face and screaming at me, like some of the instructors would do, it was like, oh, dude, I've been here before. I've had people much closer to me than you scream in my face and tell me how messed up I am. Easy day. And I look over and people are just crumbling next to me. And I'm just like, isn't that interesting? Okay. And so now they're just cold as hell. They're tired. They're miserable. I'm like, dude, do you know how many nights I chose to go work out when I was working full time, going to school full time, and at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, that was the time I had to go work out, and I chose to. Where these big guys were like, man, I've got all day. I don't have a job. I'm not going to school. I've got all day to work out. So I'm just going to pick the sweet time of the day to go work out, go train. I'll go relax, play my Nintendo or whatever they're doing. And then I'll just go work out again tomorrow. And then I'll go into the Navy. It's like, yeah, you can look really tough and big on the outside, but when you're tired, when you're beaten down, right? When you have adversity thrown in your face, are you willing to keep going? Unless you have known what that feels like, it's going to be a rude awakening. Buds is not there to teach you. Buds is there to test you. And those guys are tested and they come up short time and time again. And so the Navy's like always, okay, how do we mass produce these guys? Like, how do you mass produce Navy SEALs? That's what the government wants. Like, we would like just thousands of them. And it's like, well, you don't mass produce them, right? So in the Navy, now they created these huge training centers to get these kids prepped for going in. Because like, obviously, if we teach them and they could do more push-ups and pull-ups and sit-ups, they'll be able to get through and we'll have a higher pass rate. So they spent millions and millions of dollars of building these incredibly world-class facilities. And what do we get? Like David Goggins says, because he was an instructor over there towards the end of his career over at Great Lakes. And he said, you know what the Navy did? They built bigger, faster, stronger quitters.
Yeah. No, because like this is the thing, like with regards to like doing anything like this, and trust me, I'm not saying I've got resilience or anything like that to go what someone goes through to do, like to become a Navy SEAL or like to become a member of the SAS, like over here in the UK. By all means, no. But it's a case of there is an element of way before even getting into like signing up, you have to have a certain amount of going through mental adversity. Like you can't have a sort of silk sheets life mindset, if you get what I mean, because you will get broken quite easily. It's like when you have a boxer or a fighter who's achieved everything, and then it's like, yeah, it's kind of hard getting out of bed and training when you've been sleeping in silk sheets. You know what I mean? And if you've got that sort of mindset before you go into something like, say, BUDS or any type of special forces training, I imagine you're going to be very ill prepared. And like, look, the sort of push-ups training, everything like this, no. Like, it's like, yeah, if you're going out running for a marathon or if you're going out to do an ultra marathon, it's bit by bit by bit by bit by bit, all of the sort of training runs you do, which sort of like, if we use David Goggins, for example, callous your mind to that sort of pain. And I don't think you can truly train for something like that in BUDS at all. Yeah.
And one of the things that came up for me, and it was one of those insights for me in the moment when we're on that grinder, I'm watching those guys quitting and having the instructor in my face and being able to detach. It's something I knew how to do because of that upbringing, because of a tough upbringing, right? And all the way up until that point in my life, I always thought, man, that just sucks. Like, it's not fair. It's like, why did I have to have all these things happen to me? And in that moment, it's really what I learned. I'm a big fan of that reframe. And you'll hear me talk about it all the time, because in that moment, all those things that happened into my life, I go, holy shit. Everything I've done up to this point has trained me to be on this grinder right now. And in that moment, I chose to take that in and go, absolutely, that's a gift for this moment. Instead of me being a victim and feeling so sorry for me and blah, 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 and all the things I could have said about that, I chose just to spin it in a way that's like, wow, this is perfect. Everything that's happened to me up to this point has prepared me right for this moment here. Thank you. And now all those things that most people would say, oh, that sucks for you, I turn into a gift for me. That's simply a way to see the history in a way that serves me for my future. And I wish I could give the gift to everybody that has a past that they go, man, if only if I was grown up like this, if only I could have. It's like, let all that go.
Mhm.
Everything that's happened to you is now in the past. Now you get to have the gift of how you choose to make up that story moving forward.
Yeah. I'm going to have to ask because you've mentioned this a couple of times. When you say tough upbringing, how was it tough? Dare I ask?
Yeah, so it's like old school upbringing, right? So, when I was in elementary school, we used to get to paddle. My parents, my stepdad, liked to bring up the belt,
Mm-hmm.
right? If we really want to get into it, my biological father ended up shooting himself before, when I was just a newborn. Never got to really meet, like, not that I remember meeting him. He decided to tap out and shoot himself. Um, my grandfather, so my grandfather's one of those guys I never liked because he always, he would. Have you ever had that look from somebody who's like, motherfucker, I wish you were dead?
Oh.
Like it's
uh,
from other people, just like, you annoy me, kid.
yeah.
He used to give me that look, and I'm, just 5, 10 years old. And we spend a lot of time with our single mom, and we spend a lot of time at my grandparents' place. And he used to always try to push me away, always try to get rid of me, always tell me to go somewhere else, get away from me. I don't want you around me. Chase me with a pool stick. There's a pool table in his house. I'm like, okay. And I never understood until um, I have an older sister, 2 years older than me, right? And we used to be over there all the time. And then one day when I'm 12 years old, I think it was, he got arrested. I didn't know what he got arrested for. And then I found out that he was doing things to my family members that, um, he was just molesting people left and right. And then it all made sense to me. It's like, holy shit. Now I understand why somebody could hate me so much. They didn't want me around because I was a nuisance to them. And then I went through a point where, like, holy shit, how worthless can I be if I can't even take care of my sister? How could I ever let those things happen and let somebody that's that close to us do something like that? And how could I be so oblivious to what's going on? Like, I'm an idiot. I'm no good. Like, I just beat the hell out of myself mentally. I felt like I should have been able to do something different. And, once he went to jail and it started to come out into the light, um, that's where it was like I had an upbringing where I had somebody so viciously treat me away. And it's like any child's like, all I want to do is be loved. All I want to do is have people appreciate me or whatever it is.
Mm.
And so that was a great lesson for me. Like the feeling of um, revenge, the feeling of like just wanting to just crush somebody's soul. If there was one, it would be my grandfather. Right. So I went through a lot of that process. And I remember like getting to the point where there's a point in my life, like probably 13, 14 years old. It's like, I'm going to go back. I'm going to kill that motherfucker. And then it got to the point where it's like, no, he's just an old man. He's not worth it. Move forward. Okay. And then, and I love my grandmother. Like she was always awesome to us. But that was one of those tougher times for me growing up, is having to go through that process of having to deal with people that just despised you for no reason.
Mm.
Didn't understand why until I was older. Right. And it's just like, huh. So be able to put up that facade, that protective mechanism when you have people treating you that way, it's like, okay. So then when that instructor was standing on the grinder at Bud's trying to, shake me down, or the instructor is like, dude, there's nothing you can do to me that was more hurtful than what I've already had done to me.
Mm. And I suppose you most already, because of your grandfather, you most already could tell who was absolutely serious about it and who wasn't serious about it. Oh, you're just doing your job. Or like you go, oh yeah, Smith over there, he really wants me gone, if you get what I mean. I might
Oh
be.
yeah. And yeah, there was definitely instructors, they're humans. Some of them just like to mess with you. Some of them wanted to have you feel like they did when they went through, and
Mm,
some you just could do anything right for, right? And that's just part of the process.
yeah.
Like you'd sharpen your knife, we'd stand in line, and we'd have our little life jackets on going out for a swim. And we'd have to have our knives on us, and we'd pull out our knives, and they have to be really sharp, right? And so you have instructor walk by and pull your, look at your knife, take it and just run it across the grinder, the asphalt, the concrete, right? Pick it up and go, hey, instructor Smith, come on over here. Well, obviously, you know,
Mm,
Rich didn't really take this seriously. Look at his knife.
mm,
And you're just, if they want to see, will you engage them? Will you try to say they're wrong? Will you go, no, no, I had it sharp, right? Because there's nothing you can say in that moment that will get them to go, oh, you're right. He just did it on the grinder. Oh, you did have it sharp. No, it's like you're about to get the beat down. It's not fair. How will you take it?
mm,
How will you overcome when there's nothing you did wrong? Right. And people just freak out like, oh, you're wrong. No, I had, and they'll argue. And you go, in that moment, can you just take a breath, take in the feedback,
mm.
and then move forward? Or are you going to fight for what you think is right? And in that moment, can you see what's going on? Can you just let go of your own ego and having to be right and just go, okay, absolutely. My knife is definitely not sharp now. And now you're going to write me a paper, a 5-page paper tonight. In that brief moment, you have a chance to get some rest on why I'm so messed up and why I don't feel like I should have to sharpen my knife. Okay, no problem. Got it. We'll have it to you.
Mm, yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. Because like this is a thing that like the life experience we all have, like, yeah, good, bad, like sometimes the trauma sometimes is the foundation stone for like, dare I say it, it sounds crazy me saying this, but sometimes for like greatness, for a lot of people, from what I've seen, most people who I've seen who maybe it's a bit of like, how can I say, success bias or something like this, but like everyone I've seen who've like gone on to great things have had sort of like they've had a lot of things to sort of overcome in the sort of like formative stages in their life, and sort of like being able to like take what you've been through, and when you go through the whole sort of like instructors like, oh, your knife's not sharp, gives you that sort of understanding that, yeah, sometimes life is just shitty. It will hand out like its blows to you regardless. And being able to sort of take that on and go, right, you can argue, waste energy, or you can like go, right, fair enough. Yeah, I'll do better next time, and be able to save that energy from the argument, which could be potentially there to like strive to go on to bigger things, to like take to observe and see the bigger goal, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And one of the things that comes up for me is like when we were talking earlier
Mm,
about that motivation, like I said, oh, why do you need to be motivated to even go to the gym? And one of the things that comes up for me and about our history, a lot of us have a tendency to think it's unfair.
mm,
It was unfair what was done to me. Life is unfair. And it's the same type of mental game to play with yourself. It's just like motivation. Whoever said life was fair? Whoever said life was supposed to be fair? Right? So if we fight for life to be fair, and we'll feel like a victim all the time if we feel like it's not being fair. So if we just let go of like, I don't need life to be fair. Life being fair, fair for me is simply my judgment, is simply me thinking things are supposed to be a certain way. That's what fairness and unfairness are. If I can let go of that and just go, life is here. I'm so grateful for this life. And I'm just going to do the best I can. Whatever happens, happens. But if I have this mental construct in my mind, like it's supposed to look a certain way, it can be a difficult thing. The brain will definitely seek out those types of things. If we just let all that go, and those are these mental models that we use. So one of the things that I love talking about, and this is a good example of it, it's like those expectations and expectations not being met. So like the week after Hell Week, in my mind, I was prepared for it. Like, I'm ready. Everybody's fired up. And it's like, no matter what you throw at me, I can take it. You know, I draw a sand in the line, and no matter what, I'd rather die than quit mentality. Right. And I tell myself that I would rather die than quit. And there are definitely times where it's just like, okay, my heart might pop. It definitely feels like I've been pushed like harder than I've ever been pushed. I might die, but you know what? Today's a good day to die. Let's go. And that worked really well to get me through there. And the week after, I'm like, okay, we're so jacked up. Everybody's messed up. I mean, some guys, they have all this inflammation. Like the body does some really weird stuff when you're exposed to that type of trauma. And some guys look really like we all had hair missing and all kinds of stuff because we're running around with boats on our heads, pounding us for a week. Everybody had like folliculitis, these irritations from the sand. And like we're all physically and emotionally messed up from that week. And that next week, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, they have to let us rest. They have to let us recover, right? Because it's not human otherwise. And so that's the shit that I was making up. And so the next week, what they did is we did like hydrographic reconnaissance. And so that's simply us having to go out into the ocean at night and drift with the current and take these little depth soundings of the depth of the ocean floor all the way down the beach. And we were out there for hours, right? And we're just drifting towards Mexico. Right. And we're just taking these little depths, and on our little grease boards, we're writing down the depth as we go. We're all in line, and you just drift in line. Right. And it's pretty surreal because it's like the moon's out and it's just really quiet, and you hear the waves crashing in the background, and you're just drifting with the current, and you're moving down. You're taking samples of the bottom and charting. And the instructors say, we know exactly what the bottom looks like. So you guys better not mess it up. You better not try to sandbag it. We know exactly what it is. You will pay if you don't do it right. And so we're already beat down. We're already tired. And it's like 2:00 in the morning. We're trying to make these precise charts of the ocean floor. And we're looking around, and I'm just dying here. I'm just like, everybody's like, eyes are closing. We're all just falling asleep trying to do these charts. And in that moment, it's probably one of the darkest times I had in Buds, because in my mind, I said, this isn't fair. You shouldn't be doing this to us. Right. And thankfully, in that moment, one of our guys, one of my buddies looking around, saw all of us suffering. And he just cracked some corny joke or just something to shift our mentality, right? It's a superpower. If you can crack a joke at the right time when people are suffering and get them out of that moment and keep moving forward, it's huge, right? So he looked around, he saw it, and he made the right comment at the right time and pulled us out. But that was a dark moment for me because I had made it up in my head what it's supposed to look like. And that was a great learning lesson for me. Just like, get over what I think it's supposed to look like and be able to adapt to what it is. Now, I think there's a lot of value and power in visualization. And like I tell people, hey, by the time I have this interview with you, it'll be the third time I've had this interview with you, because I already planned it the night before. That morning, I had my visualization, what it's going to look like and how I want it to go. And then when I step into the reality of the situation, it's like my third time doing it. So it helps calm me down to going, hey, man, I've been here before. It's not my first rodeo, right? But also in the same token, I'm adaptable to however it looks. I don't have an expectation on how I think it should go or how I think it's supposed to go. Because I learned that a while ago. If I have that expectation, it can go sideways. And then it's like I give my own pity party.
Well, I hope I have lived up to the reputation in reality rather than the virtual version of
Oh,
mine.
absolutely. Absolutely.
No, I no, I understand that, and like this is the thing. Like many of the jobs I've done, which have been like the crappiest in like my sort of like working career, it's always comes down to sort of the camaraderie of the people you work with, and that's when I think that sort of more jokes are cracked and the sort of more sort of having a laugh
Yeah.
is more important rather than sort of just getting the job done. And like, yes, when it's been more of a, say, this is a quote unquote more professional setting, you don't have that sort of camaraderie. You just do it by the numbers and you're gone. So you
Yeah.
don't feel that bond. It's kind of sad, but it is what it is,
Yeah. And one of the things that I talk to people about building elite teams all the time. And it's like, whoa, how do you build an elite team? It's like the fastest way is to insert immersive training where there's common suffering, right? Everybody's uncomfortable and everybody's suffering together. And that's how you bond people quickly, right? So you look at sports teams, and it's one of the analogies, like you may watch all these, like how often do these all-star teams come together and they just are just rock stars, team players? Rarely, right? Usually sometimes you get these teams that play together in a wave where there's like one living, breathing unit. And there may be no stars on that team, but man, when they play together, it's just like, it's amazing. And that's what we learned in the teams. It's like, can we come together? Everybody comes with a SEAL, has gone through this common training, this common suffering. So when you go into the teams, everybody's like, yep, you've been through the basics, right? Now we can pick it up. And that's one of the things you learn in the teams real fast is you think, a lot of young guys come out of buds like, oh, I finished buds. I'm the shit. Right. And then you go into teams like, you're nobody. Everybody else has been here. You're the new guy. Shut up. And you just fall back in line, shut your mouth, learn something from us, that type of thing. Open up, be coachable. Because a lot of kids, they come in and it's like, we went to jump school in Fort Benning, Georgia. It's where they had it when I went through. And there were some guys that came out of buds thinking, oh, we're better than the Army. Like, because we're going through an Army school. Like, oh, we're better than, oh, they try to beat us. So they make us do 10 push-ups, right? And so we're doing sets of like 50 in buds. So we just keep on going. There's like 10 and everybody's, oh, 10. And the guys are screwing around doing like, oh, we're going to make you do 2 pull-ups. And the guys are pulling out 20 pull-ups and stuff. We're like, oh, you want more? But they were being disrespectful, right? And it's not a professional. And so, but kids are young and dumb. And they think, oh, I've been through buds. I'm a tough guy. I'm a big guy. And yeah, that was one of the lessons I learned real fast. It wasn't me, but I got to experience that. And they end up just getting sent back to their team and they didn't last too long. Right. So it's like nobody wants to be around those type of people as well. Right.
Yeah.
So that common suffering is a real way to bond people quickly. So it's kind of like when you go through training, and if you're out partying with people all the time, you're like, oh, those are my friends, Well, we take people through experiences where they train for like 2 days straight together, and they're hurting. They need to rely on each other. They work with each other to get through these experiences. They're tighter at 2 days, and these people are at 2 or 4 years when they go out just drinking together. Because usually when human beings come together, it's common suffering, that common push, that common need to work with each other to be able to overcome that really helps bond people quickly.
No, I have to agree with that. Yeah. Like, but with regards to say building teams, like
Yeah.
I was watching, I can't remember the guy's name. I was watching a quick snippet of a YouTube video where like it was either like he was like talking about where would you put the focus on? Would you put the focus on your weakest player or your like superstar? And like he took uh, for the American people out there, soccer. Ugh, it feels so wrong. You go,
Sound
oh, duh. Well, I feel dirty. I get dirty. No, no, no. I
wrong.
soccer as an example, and he went, yeah. Like normally, the weakest players are the ones who touch the ball more. Then basically it manages to work its way out, and like their star player is one of the people who touches the ball least. But in like a game of basketball, like yeah, like whoever your superstar would normally like they can like he used LeBron as an example. He can like take it from one end of the court to the other end of the court all by himself and score, dunk, do whatever he needs. So the focus is there. Like what do you like? Do you change your focus from like company to company or group to group, or is it just like yes, you go one way with it?
So I appreciate stars on a team.
Mm,
The approach would be, let's make sure that we're playing as a team. If a star rises because they can score better than anybody else, awesome. Let's have them score better than anybody else. But the mentality is we are all working as one living, breathing unit. You just happen to be taking that shot, right? So it's just like taking down bin Laden. It's a SEAL team. There's hundreds of people on that mission.
mm,
And one guy takes a shot. Is he the star of the show? Maybe, but it took everybody in concert working together to allow that shot to happen, right? And it's like, and that's just one of the examples. It's not that that person is better than. It's like, no, that's the job. Just as important as the guys who are running the perimeter, just as important as the guys who are flying the helicopters or fueling the helicopters or doing the comms to allow that mission, the CIA agents allowing that mission to happen. They all have that role. Elite teams are like, I know what my role is. I'm no less valuable than anybody else. Somebody's going to take the shot. And if the team is really good, it's like, it doesn't matter who takes the shot. The only thing that matters is that we execute on the mission. And that's where the stars are born, is where the whole team wins. Now that's challenging, right? So
mm,
I can go in and talk to a professional sports team. And I had before, it's like, hey, if everybody does their job and we win, and you guys win, the Super Bowl championship, the World Cup, the Stanley Cup, whatever cup that you're going for, everything else is going to work its way out, right? You will be taken care of. You win as a team. The reality of it is, right, now the agent's going, hey, you've got 3 years in this league. If you're lucky enough to even be here, you need to score as many points as you can because you've got your contract coming up in a season. So you better look like an all-star, because nobody cares if you're a team player as much as how many points did you put on the board.
mm.
So you've got that chirping in your ear as well, right? That's just the reality of it, right? So how do you be a team player when you have these different types of pressures coming at you? And it's like, wow. And I also talk to coaches who are like, hey, this guy could be in the league, but we don't trust him to be able to do the system that we ask him to do. So he wants to be an all-star, but he's not willing to play our system. So we can't trust him to be a team player. So it's very interesting. They're human beings, right? So it's like, what type of team do you want to be on? And if you guys are playing as a team, if we can let go and strip down the ego and go, it's not about me, and that a lot of this work is done in the teams. Just, we call it the grinder, that concrete slab I was telling you about. That's to grind down who we were to become who we can be. like that version that the Navy, the SEAL teams want us to be. And that's the team player. One of the things he used to say all the time is there's no Rambos in the team. It's called the SEAL teams for a reason. And can we strip down the ego enough to not make it about you, but to make it about the team achieving the mission? That takes a lot of work, because there's definitely a lot of egos. There's definitely a lot of different personalities, like in any group of people, especially high achievers, right? So you take somebody like in a professional soccer team, professional football team, there's going to be some big egos there because they've been all-stars in anything they've ever done, right? They've always been the best of any team they've played in until they get to that top level. Then it's like, most of them are like, oh, I'm just happy to be here. Some of them will be like, I'm the best here, right? But how do we let that dissolve the ego enough to go, if we work as a team, we'll be unbeatable. If I'm just being an all-star, we'll get crushed, right? So how do we work in the system in which that we can all perform? And you see it all the time. You see stars, right, that just probably perform about half as good as they could. If they would have just worked in that system, they would have been unbeatable. And some people want to work in that system and some people don't. And that's okay. You know, it's a human condition. That's really hard to overcome the ego and be able to go, hey, I will do whatever it takes for my team to win. Instead of most people are like, I'll do whatever it takes for me to look good. And it's kind of hardwired. We want to look good and be right. Those are really powerful drives within us, right?
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. So I have to ask, where would you like your drive, your journey to take you in the next, let's go with 2023, 2024, election time for you guys next year.
Already?
Oh,
my goodness.
yes. It never ends. It never ends.
For me, my goal is to pursue this concept of the impossible goal. So it's one of the things I'm developing right now is I'm talking a lot to my coaches as like, what's my niche? Who do I want to serve? What's the type of person that I just can't get enough coaching with? I just love, like, we go way better people because we coach with each other. And it's like in 2023, I'm creating this impossible goal opportunity. I want to work with people that have these goals, have had goals in their mind. Like when I planted that seed to go into buds, and it's like, that's crazy. I love working with crazy people. I love working with people who go, man, I would love to start this company, but I'm afraid because, you know, I've got it pretty easy right now. It's pretty comfortable, but what if I put that at risk? And what if I fail? It's like, but that's my person right there. I want to run shoulder to shoulder with those people. Go, that would be impossible for me to lose 100 pounds. It'd be impossible for me to be able to sell my business in 5 years, or to start a new career, or to whatever, stop my career and just be with the kids, or whatever it is. Like, that's impossible. And I just go, well, what if it's not? If it wasn't, would you go for it? And if they say, oh, okay, great. Like, I just want that itch. Those people with that itch just going, man, that scares the hell out of me. I don't know why it's like the people that have to go climb Everest. Like, I've never had that itch. Like, I've got no desire to ever go climb Everest, but there are people that do, just like people going to the SEAL teams. Most people are like, dude, you guys are crazy. I would never do that to myself. That's okay. They're not wrong. Right. And the people that have that itch, it's like, I don't know why, but I just feel like I want to do this. But then I stop that brain stops. Well, you've invested all this time in this career. Oh, what do people think about you? If you did that and failed, it's like, shut up. Let's go. I've got you shoulder to shoulder. We're going to bust through that impossible goal that you have. Those are my people. Like, those are the people that I jump out of bed in the morning going, let's go. Crazier the better. Let's go. So in 23, I'll be developing that, like, where I can just go, fuck yeah, that's an impossible goal. I love it.
Brilliant. Let's see if we can help get you there in like 2023/2024. Now, yeah. Now, final question. Final question.
Sure.
Now, if there was one thing you could tell your younger self to help make their life a little bit easier, a little bit better, give them a little bit of purpose, what would that one thing be?
I would tell them, relax. The shit's all made up. Be uncomfortable. Have fun. That's what I tell them. Like, stop thinking, the world will collapse and blah, blah, blah. It's like, just relax. It's a story. And if it's a story, what story do you want to tell yourself? And go with that one.
Perfect. Richard, I have to say thank you for coming on today. You have been outstanding. You have been a superstar. And yeah, how can they find you here, out there on these interwebs?
On the interwebs.
Yeah.
I'm on Instagram, UVU Coaching, and on the my website, uvucoaching.com. So a U and a V, it's U versus U, collapse down into UVU Coaching. So you can find me there, and those are probably the two best places to find me.
Yes, I'll put all of this information into the show notes. So the description, so you can go out there, find Rich. Yeah, let him show you some of that seal grit. Say no more. And yeah, please do get in contact with him. But I'd like to say thank you to you, my friends, my life warriors, for sticking with us to the end of the show. Please stay well, stay safe, be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic. Be all the positive bees you can be in this world and then some. And have a great day, guys. Yes. Peace. And we are.